Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel. Today, continuing the Swamp Thing read-along, the Swamp Thing number 54. In the previous issue, Swamp Thing died. So, where do you go from there? Well, you go here. How do you make a Swamp Thing comic interesting without Swamp Thing? You come up with a really interesting story for Abby. Abby, who is mourning the loss of her lover, is given quite a thing to do in this issue. Let's go through it. We're going to meet some old friends as well who have fallen on some hard times. We're going to have to dig deep into our memory banks, and we're going to have to remember Liz Tremaine and Dennis Barclay. They were characters in the Swamp Thing title before Alan Moore took over. He kind of wrote them off in his first issue. Basically, Dennis was I think he was like a psychic adept, and Liz was a journalist that wrote a book about Swamp Thing, and they were being pursued by the Sunderland Corporation, and they, escaped. They ran off, and they've been on the run since we last saw them back probably over 30 issues ago. So it's been a while. We haven't heard from them, and we're going to catch up with them now. And we open up with an interesting layout, 16-panel grid of this woman huddled in the darkness in her home. It's a sparse home, and she's obviously frightened. She's terrified to touch anything. She won't even plug in the TV because Dennis has told her that electricity kills thousands of people every year. But she works up the courage. She puts on 2 sets of gloves, plugs in the TV, just to get news of the outside world. Dennis has been gone for days after she spoke up to him and basically said that all that they have in common is the horror in their lives. So he's left. He hasn't come back, and she's trying to figure out what she's going to do next. And she sees Abby on TV. Basically the news report of what happened in Gotham in the previous story arc. Check out those previous videos if you're not completely caught up. And through the narration, it's revealed that this is Lisbeth Tremaine, that she is the character from the beginning of the Swamp Thing run. And she decides to track down Abigail because Dennis told her Abby was dead. Dennis said, Abby and Swamp Thing have been dead for years. Sunderland got them. We've got to stay on the run. We've got to stay hidden. We've got to stay indoors, and stay a step ahead of Sunderland. So he's kept her completely under lock and key for these past 2 years. And it's really, it is domestic abuse. It's domestic abuse. She is psychotically broken down because of it, and because of him being psychotically controlling. So she takes this huge step. He finds Huma, Louisiana on the map, steals money from his wallet, and gets a bus ticket to Louisiana. And we started with a 16-panel grid. It becomes a 12-panel grid of these pages here, as she's thinking a lot of these words, psyching herself up to leave. I like these panels of her getting closer to the doorknob until her hand is, reaching out to grip it. She won't even sit down in the bathtub because he's told her that sitting in the bathtub is dangerous. You can hit your head and drown. So she's just standing, which to me is more dangerous because if you're standing, that's when you're going to trip and fall. If you're already seated, you can't trip, So I don't know. He didn't think that one through. But we have all of these blocks, all these panels, all these words, and it makes the splash page, the splash title page here, all the more impactful because there are no words other than the titles and the credits. There's no separate panels. It's just the one big splash page. The Flowers of Romance, written by Alan Moore, with art by Rick Veitch and Alfredo Alcala. And here is Abby, in the swamp, mourning. She is distraught at the loss of Swampy. And people around her are trying to reach out. Commissioner Gordon says that Gotham would like to arrange a funeral service. They'll cover the expenses. Batman is talking about how, you'll learn to accept it in the coming days. Chester, who's going to become a recurring character, offers his phone number because he wants to keep Swamp Thing's memory alive and his mission and his message alive. And she has been kind of ignoring all of them because she's in her mourning phase. But she decides it's time to go home. She leaves the swamp, and we follow her walking home. Note these panels here, like this kind of layout and what we're seeing. She enters her home. It's kind of a mess. The plants have died, and she's doing okay. She's just kind of zombie walking through this. But when she reaches the stage where she's going to throw away the plant, it's too much for her, and she breaks down and starts sobbing. Meanwhile, Liz is on her way into town. She takes the bus. She walks to get a taxi. Taxi drives her in. Abby is just despondent. She's not moving until we get a revisit of this panel that I mentioned, keep an eye on. Where is it? There. So here we have Liz's feet where Abby's were. She's got just the slippies on. Abby's got the sneaks. She's going up the steps, same steps. So now we know she's coming to Abby's house. She's found her and rings the bell. And that brings Abby out of her stupor. And Abby is surprised to see her because they haven't heard from her. And Liz immediately starts talking about how, Dennis said that Sunderland was after us. We thought you were dead. And Abby's like, Sunderland's been dead for 2 years. Sunderland can't be after you. There's obviously some kind of misunderstanding here. Liz is like, no, they've been hounding us. They send us letters every week, and Dennis hides us from them. He's protecting me. He's protecting us. And I really love this here. When you're first reading these panels, you can see the gutter to the right, and instinctively, this just reads as a gutter. Like, you're used to seeing white between panels. It's a little extra thick here, but that's fine. But as you're reading downward, you see that it's not a gutter. It's actually the side of the television where Dennis sees that she has plugged it into the wall outlet. So he gets that moment of discovery. We get that moment of discovery as our eyes pan down. Clever use of page layout, which is what Rick Veitch is really known for. He sees that she circled Huma on the map. He sees the news article about Abigail, and he deduces that that's where she went, so he's going to go after her. Liz is talking about how she's not smart. She has to rely on Dennis, and Abby's like, "What do you mean you're not smart? You're an award-winning journalist. Like, what is going on here?" And it dawns on Abby here, especially because Liz says she doesn't have any underwear. Her underwear are just towels that are knitted together. And she's like, "Oh, Dennis couldn't buy me any new clothes because Sunderland was watching him. And if they saw him buying women's clothes, they would have been on to us." And Abby knows at this point that Liz has been the victim of domestic abuse this whole time, and Dennis is completely off the deep end. And unfortunately, Dennis is on his way to town. And we see that here because he's got his hand on the wheel and he's got the veins popping out because he's gripping that wheel. He's angry that she's left. We also got his furious eyeball in the rearview mirror. Again, just using every inch of the panel, every inch of the page to convey storytelling, to just convey character information, story information. What Rick Veitch is so damn good at. And Dennis shows up, knocks the doorbell, and starts spraying bullets in there. He's not happy with Abby for taking Liz. He's not happy with Liz for leaving. He tries to tell Liz that you believed her, that Sunderland was dead. How could you believe her over me? I've kept you safe. She's not even Abby. She's one of their agents. She's lying to you. Abby decks him on the head with this vase, and they run out of the house into the swamps, because that's what Abby knows more than anything at this point, is she knows the swamps. Dennis chases after them, hops in his truck, and Liz is, seeing, she saw the something in his eyes that really, really terrified her this time. So she doesn't have too much trouble running away, although she does try to appeal to Abby and say, like, maybe if I just apologize, it won't be too bad. But Dennis is completely off the deep end at this point. Um, Rick Veitch does this a lot. He'll do like a 3-panel like triptych, or I don't know if a triptych's the right word, but he'll do a sequence where it's all the same background, but there will be motion that moves through it, or there will be action that progresses on each panel. So we have like the wheel coming to a stop, him leaving the car, and then him going into the woods, but it's all one image. And I've been really enjoying this. They've been doing this a lot. They did it in the previous issue too, where you get these kind of like faded, ephemeral, dreamy looking art kind of in the backgrounds, like these just a pure blue line. That's a really interesting technique. I mentioned in the last issue, I think I'm not quite sure how they accomplished that. If it's just coloring, if it's blue line ink, like I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, Abby is wondering like what her role is now. Like without Swamp Thing, she feels like she doesn't have anything to offer. She doesn't feel useful. And then she also thinks that like Liz is also useless right now. Like she won't run. Someone's broken every bone in her soul. She was so bright, so strong. I guess it doesn't take much to dismantle a human being. We come apart so easily. And in helping Liz escape, Abby is able to prop herself up as well and realize that she's not useless, that she can help others in the same way that Swamp Thing did. She leads them through the swamps, and she takes them to this field of flowers and says, "We're going to go around these." And Liz is like, "No, let's just go straight through them. We can't go through the thickets. If we get pricked by any thorns, we might get tetanus." Dennis says tetanus is really dangerous. Abby says, "No, come on, we're going around it." And Dennis catches up to them. He goes directly through the flowers, and it's not solid ground. It's actually a pond that is covered in flowers, and he's so focused on what's ahead of him that he doesn't see the eyes behind him of gators in this swamp that are slowly approaching him. Abigail tries to tell him, we think you should look behind you. Like, Dennis, check behind you. He says, "What do you think? I'm an idiot. I was born yesterday. I'm not falling for that one." Then we get the sound effect and the grimace of pain on his face as something took a bite out of him under the water, and then all hell breaks loose. A bunch of alligators just completely take him apart. So a little bit of like a good for her story. This guy definitely deserved it. He was obviously very abusive and completely destroyed her psyche, Liz's psyche. And moving forward, she's not going to like disappear after this issue. She will have an arc where she's able to come back to herself. A little bit of spoiler for the future, but I just wanted you to know that her story doesn't end here. We'll see her again. Abby walks Liz away as the gun sinks into the lake, the pond, and she muses, maybe something good will come out of it all. Like he said, maybe something will grow from it. And we have the image of Swamp Thing and the stars in the sky there. Next up, Earth to Earth. So this is a simple issue. It's not superhero themed at all, but it's also a very serious issue. I mean, this is just a full comic about a domestic abuse survivor, and about women helping women get out of a horrible situation from under the thumb of a tyrannical man. This is something that, this series has already done so much that's been groundbreaking in the superhero genre, in DC Comics, in all of comics, and to have an entire issue just dedicated to this with no superhero whatsoever. Like you have a talking head of Batman show up for a moment, but that is it. Just have it be completely about this very serious real world topic is fantastic, and I think this is a great issue. It's one that I had forgotten about, and I wasn't sure where it was going to go when I first started reading it, but I was really happy with the way that it ended. a better story to me than like the werewolf one, which had kind of a clunky ending, uh, while it had kind of a similar-ish theme. But you let me know your thoughts about that in the comments. Let me know if there's anything else that I missed in this issue. Next week, we'll tackle issue 55. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.